Hi, it's Penny here, and in this video we're going to be continuing our conversation about all the book series that I have in progress. Now, I already made a video where I talked about all the series where the series is complete and I just need to find the time to finish reading them. I also did another video about the series where it's not complete yet, the author hasn't finished writing it, but I still have some more books I need to read to catch up on. This video though, we're going to talk about all the series where I'm caught up, but the author needs to do their job and finish up the series. And it's kind of nice that I'm not responsible for not having finished these series, but it also feels like because there's quite a lot of series on this list that like at any moment I could get a whole bunch of new book releases that I need to read, and so it's kind of in some ways still stressful having this big list, but also it's out of my control, so I don't know what I can do about it. I would like to know if you have any ideas about how you keep the number of series you're waiting for books on under control. But anyway, there's a lot of series for me to tell you about, so let's just get into talking about them. I do have 26 series on this list, and I'm going to start with ones that I'm the most certain about their release dates, through to ones where I'm not even sure if the series will ever be continued. And this first section is going to be books that are going to be released in 2022. I did have a few of these on my most anticipated book releases of 2022 list, so I'll link that here, but I'll try and just go through them quickly. Firstly, we've got the Alchemical Journeys series by Shawnee Maguire. So the first book was Middle Game, and Seasonal Fears actually came out on the 3rd of May. Now I know technically it's past the 3rd of May now, and so I could continue the series. In fact, I have a hold on it at the library, but kind of my rule, just to be nice to myself, is I don't count myself as being behind on a series until my library has been able to deliver it to me. And maybe that's cheating, but that's just the way I do it. So the Alchemical Journeys series is all about kind of these children who are being manipulated using alchemy in order to become gods. The first book, Middle Game, we had twins Roger and Dodger who had the power of mathematics and language. And then I think this latest one, although I haven't read it yet, is going to be about this couple and they have powers related to the seasons. I don't know. I will have it from the library soon though, so I'll be caught up again, and then I'll be waiting, and then it'll belong on this list. See? It's reasonable. Then in July, we're going to be getting the next book from the Monk and Robot series. So I only just started this last year. The first book was A Psalm for the Wild Built, and the sequel, A Prayer for the Crown Shy, is coming out in July. This is just a really beautiful, hopeful story where the robots basically said, we're sick of this shit, we're going to live in the forest, and as a result the humans had to find a way to live more at peace with nature, but we're following this particular person who's decided to try being a tea monk and go out into the wilderness, and while they're out there in the wilderness they run into this robot who's basically come along to try and see how the humans are going. I really love this book. I'm so excited for the next one. I don't need to say that for every book though, do I? You can just assume it. Okay, then next we've got a couple of graphic novel comic book series where the next installments are coming out. So we've got the Saga graphic novel by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Patton, I think. This is a really well-loved comic book series about this couple on opposite sides of a space war. They have a child and they're basically on the run from both sides, trying to stay hidden. It's been on hiatus for a little while, but I believe new editions are coming out now of the comic, and the bind-up should be coming out in July. As well, we've got another bind-up of Monstress coming out, so I think this will be volume 7. Did I write that down? Yes, I did. That's coming out in September. This is just a really beautiful graphic novel series. The art is just amazing. The story is quite complex and I sometimes do struggle to follow it completely, but usually on a few rereads I start getting it into my head. Basically we've got the ancients who are like these animal godlike creatures, and then we've got the arcanics, which are half ancients and half humans, and they're kind of like humanoid animal creatures. We've also got cats with necromancy skills, and like the number of tails they have is the amount of power they have. And there's witches and demons and all sorts of exciting things going on. People fighting for power, different kinds of magic. I really love it and I'm excited for another volume. Then in October we'll be getting the last book of the Dreamers trilogy by Maggie Stiefvater. This is going to be called Grey Warren. The Dreamers trilogy is a spin-off from the Raven Cycle series, which is one I know a lot of people really love. I actually think maybe I like the Dreamers trilogy better. So basically in this story we've got people who use magic and people who think that those people are dangerous and that their magic is going to bring about the apocalypse, and so they're going around trying to kill the people using the magic. Meanwhile, the people using the magic are just trying to survive. The magic often has an impact on their ability to live their lives, but also there's a few who believe that their magic can actually really help the world. I actually need to reread this series before this last one comes out, because there was something that happened at the end of the second book that kind of made me rethink the whole thing. So I'm excited to get to the end of the trilogy. Then we'll also be getting the second book in duology, so this will be another series completed once it comes out. I'm talking about the Great Cities duology by N.K. Jemisin. So the first one was The Cities We Became, and this new one is going to be The World We Make. This is basically set in a world where cities can gain a soul, and as they go through the birthing process, these avatars are created, these human avatars that represent different qualities of the city. So we're basically following a bunch of people in New York as New York is born, but there's also creatures who are trying to stop New York from being born. I really love the way that this story built up kind of a foundation of concepts that meant that it could say things that wouldn't make any sense if you didn't have this foundation, but because you did, it did make sense and it was genius. I love stories like that. So it's a bit strange, but I am excited to finish off the duology. And then lastly in 2022, one that I didn't put on my anticipated book releases of 2022 list because I didn't know about it yet, but now I do. In December, we're going to be getting another book from the Truly Devious series. So I don't actually know if that's what the series is called. The original trilogy was called Truly Devious, and we follow this girl named Stevie Bell who wants to be a detective. In the first trilogy, she's going to this fancy boarding school and trying to solve an old murder that happened at this school like many years ago. I want to say 50 years ago, but that might not be accurate. But anyway, she's trying to solve this cold case while also kind of struggling with some teen stuff. I really liked the anxiety representation and a lot of her friendships that she makes. There was also another little book where she goes to summer camp and solves a murder mystery there. I don't actually know what this next book is going to be about, but it's called 9 Liars, and I just find Stevie Bell mysteries to be a lot of fun, so I'm excited to get another book. Okay, now we're going to move on to series where I think the next book will probably come out in 2023. Firstly, we've got Hellbent coming out by Leigh Bardugo. This is the sequel to Ninth House in the Alex Stern series. So in this series, we've got Alex Stern, and I never remember which university it is. I think it's Oxford. And she has a position in the Ninth House, which is basically one of these magical houses, but the Ninth House looks out for the other ones and makes sure that they're following the rules. And the reason Alex is perfect for the job is that she's able to see ghosts. But she also has a bit of a traumatic past, and as well, her mentor, who's been teaching her a lot about magic, has gone missing. So you're kind of following two timelines, one as she's just getting into this position, then a later timeline where he's missing and she's just trying to struggle through life. You also get a little bit of her traumatic past, and I did love the way it came together. I really liked Alex and some of the side characters. There was a reveal at the end, which I think has made a lot of people excited to see what's going to happen next. So I'm excited that we won't have to wait very much longer. Also in early 2023, we should be getting the third book in the One of Us series by Karen McManus. So the first book was called One of Us is Lying, then I think it was One of Us is Next, and the third book is going to be called One of Us is Back. In the first book, we basically had a bunch of teenagers in detention, and by the end of the detention session, one of them was dead. And each of these teens also potentially has a motive for killing the person who died. And then in the second book, there's another murder mystery following mostly some of the younger siblings from the original characters, but some of the original characters are still around as well. I don't know what the third book's going to be about, but what I actually liked about this series was not so much the murder mystery, although I liked having that as the context for things. It kept things exciting. But I think what I actually liked the most was just these teens getting to know themselves and going through this process of self-discovery. It doesn't sound like something I'd like, and I was surprised, but I actually really liked the first two books, and so now I'm super excited about the third one. I'm not sure how long the series is going to be. Maybe just 3? From here we get a little bit less certain. We are supposed to be getting another book from the Burning series by Evan Winter. So the first book was Rage of Dragons, and then we had Fires of Vengeance. I think the third book is going to be called Lord of Demons, but I also think Evan Winter's a little bit behind on this one. But also I think it was meant to be out this year, so hopefully he's just a little bit behind and we'll get it in 2023. This series, if you haven't heard about it, is about this race of people who have been at war for a very long time, and some of the women are able to use like this demon dimension to access particular magical powers, including some of them are able to control dragons, although I say that hesitantly because it's actually not very many dragons in this series, and so I think if you go into it expecting dragons, you'll probably be a little bit disappointed. In the first book, we primarily followed Tao, who's basically gunning for vengeance the whole book, and I was very frustrated because to me, the women characters were way more interesting. However, we did get a bit of their perspective in the second book, and while I'm not sure if I like the direction the series is going in, I do think I'm going to at least pick up the third book before I decide what I'm doing with this series. I'm not actually sure how long the series is going to be. 4 or 5 books, I think. Also in 2023, I would like to imagine that we would get the next book in the Six World series by Rebecca Roanhorse. Honestly, I haven't seen any evidence that this would be true, but like, it's been a while since the second book came out, so surely it's time to get another book in this series. I'm a little bit nervous that maybe Rebecca Roanhorse has had more success with the Between Earth and Sky series, and so she might focus more on that series. And even though I like that series, I actually think I like the Six World series more. So we follow this woman named Mags, and she's a Native American in this post-apocalyptic world where the Native American reservations have been kind of separated from some of the other apocalyptic type issues, but they have their own problems. There's monsters and the gods are very interfering all the time. As well, some people have these magical type abilities that they have gained through their ancestry, and Mags, the one we follow, has some very special powers. I really loved Mags and I really miss her story, so I'm hoping 2023 it's gonna happen. If I believe in it enough, will it happen? Then another one that I'm really hoping we'll get soon is A Sleight of Shadows by Kat Howard. I have actually seen recently on her Twitter she's been saying things about having to turn in her book soon. So I'm hoping she's talking about Sleight of Shadows, and I'm hoping that it's like a quite final draft and that means that we will actually get to see it soon. But I don't really know. A Sleight of Shadows is supposed to be the sequel to An Unkindness of Magicians, where we had this magical tournament that happens regularly so that the magical houses can decide which one will get to be in charge for the next however long. But we also have this woman named Sydney joining the competition who's very powerful, and she has a plan to turn all the magical power structures on their head. I really loved it. I'd love to get some more of Sydney's story. I know at the time we all thought An Unkindness of Magicians was a standalone, and I think some people are a little bit disappointed that we're getting a sequel, and I don't necessarily think we needed a sequel, but I'm still kind of hopeful that it might be great. Then I've also got a couple of series by Alona Andrews, who also wrote the Kate Daniels series, which is one of my most favorite series. In fact, both of the series that I'm hoping they will continue with soon are spin-offs from the Kate Daniels series and like set in the same world. Firstly, we've got the Ryder series following Kate's adopted daughter Julie. She comes back into town with a whole new identity, but then runs into a lot of the people that we already know from the Kate Daniels series and has to deal with some relationships that she had tried to leave behind. I was so excited to be back in this world, and I really enjoyed Julie's story and the romance, which I don't normally like romance, but this is one that I'm invested in, so I'm hoping we'll get another book in this series. I'm not sure though, because I know Alona Andrews is a husband and wife duo, and I think at this point they're basically saying they don't want any pressure when it comes to writing books, so they just want to take things at their own speed, and they're not going to make any announcements about when things are coming out until they're already completed. So basically, who knows what their next focus is. I know this year they're releasing the final book in the second Hidden Legacy trilogy, but I'm hoping they might get back to the Ryder series after that, since I think it's been also pretty popular. The other one I would like them to get back to is the Iron Covenant series, where we're following essentially one of the bad guys from the Kate Daniels series, as he's kind of put in a position of responsibility and forced into a marriage of convenience. I really liked the woman that he was forced to marry. So I would like to get some more of their story, although I don't think that that particular book has been as popular as some of the other ones, so I wouldn't be surprised if they don't come back to it for a little while, unfortunately. Oh, then another one that I actually do think will probably get another book in 2023. The reason it's kind of further down on the list is that what I'm uncertain about is whether I actually want to read it. So this is the Up and Under series by Shawnee Maguire. It is related to the Alchemical Journeys series that I talked about first. So basically in Middle Game, there was a children's book that had been written basically to seed ideas into children's minds that would help certain alchemy become possible. And then Shawnee Maguire has now actually written those children's stories. And we've got Avery and Zib going into this magical land of the Up and Under, going on a magical journey. Unfortunately, while I love the first book, I did feel like it didn't quite do enough. And then the second book, I felt like it had absolutely no point to it. Like Shawnee Maguire was kind of just writing it because she knew there would be demand for it, but she didn't actually know what she wanted to do with the story. So yeah, I was very disappointed in the second book, and I have kind of said that I'm going to DNF the series, but also it makes me sad and I don't want to DNF it. So part of me is like, should I wait and see? And if it gets a lot of really good reviews, then maybe I would think about continuing it. But also, the second book got a lot of really good reviews. Although, I did look at a lot of the really good reviews it got, and even like the 5 and 4 star reviews that it was getting on Goodreads still actually talked about a lot of the flaws that it had. So maybe when the third book comes out, I'll look at the reviews and I'll actually read them and see whether even people who are giving it high stars are still saying it has problems. If they are, then maybe I won't continue it. It makes me so sad because I had so many hopes for the series. Okay, now we're going to move into series where I really have no idea when they might be released. We're going to start with the Villain series by V. Schwab. So this is the series starting with Vicious, then we got Vengeful, and there is going to be a third book called Victorious. I do actually follow Victoria Schwab on Instagram, and she often talks about what she's working on, but honestly, she's working on so many things that I don't even remember whether she talked about this being something that she's actively working on. So I don't know if it's close or far. I do know she's working on a lot of things, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was far. But I do know she has plans to write this third book at some point, so I guess we'll get it. The Villains series is one where there are people called Extraordinaries who have special abilities, superpowers, if you will. In the first book, we had a couple of college students trying to investigate how people got these powers, as well as another timeline where they have powers and they're trying to kill each other. The second book introduced a lot more characters and we got a lot more really interesting powers. I love the way that the powers work in this world, and I love the particular powers that Victoria Schwab has created. So I'm really interested to see how she wants to wrap up this series. Then we've got a couple of series by Brandon Sanderson. So firstly, the Rithmatist series. This is a middle grade series, kind of again a post-apocalyptic one, but there's these chalk monsters that are attacking people, and we're at this school where children who have the ability are learning how to draw these protective circles and create chalk creatures of their own to fight back. I really love the concept. Brandon Sanderson is great at magical concepts, but he has had this one on hold for quite a while, and I don't know when he's going to continue it. So that's a shame, but I will remain hopeful that I'll get to it at some point. Although again, he's one of these ones like Victoria Schwab who's working on a million things, so who really knows when he'll get to it. Maybe he should have done that instead of working on his secret books. But maybe that's just me being selfish. Anyway, the other one by Brandon Sanderson is the Dark One graphic novel series that he started. The first book came out, it didn't wrap it up, so there's definitely going to be more, and I found some information saying that it was going to be a trilogy, but also it isn't actually mentioned anywhere on his website, and I was a little bit confused because I haven't seen any updates about it either. So I'm not entirely clear on what's happening with this series, but there were some elements I enjoyed about it, so I'd like to finish it off at some point. Another series that I'm not very clear on what's happening with is the Babysitter's Club Little Sister graphic novel adaptations. So the Babysitter's Club Little Sister books were a spin-off from the original Babysitter's Club series, which was one of my favorite book series when I was a kid. And they've been doing these graphic novel adaptations that I've been really enjoying. I have seen plans for more to come out in the main Babysitter's Club adaptation series, but I've read the first 5 of the Little Sister series and I can't find any information information online about whether they're planning to release any more, which is a little bit confusing because as far as I can tell, the book series has been very popular. As I've said in the past, this is one of the book series at my library with the biggest whole queue ever. And there are more Little Sister books, plenty more Little Sister books for them to adapt. So I'm not sure. It doesn't make sense to me why they wouldn't do more, but also I don't know what the plans are. Then we've got the Cinder Spires series by Jim Butcher. So he's only put out the first book, The Aeronaut's Windglass, I think it's called. Windlass? I'll put it here anyway. I read it. It wasn't perfect, but there were some elements I really liked. Basically, it's a world where people live in these spires and the only way to get between them is in these airships. There's also talking cats, which I think is what I love the most about the series. And I also can't remember the details because it's been a while now since I read it, but I think the magic was really interesting. But the first book was released quite a while ago, and I know as well Jim Butcher is supposed to be working on more books in the Harry Dresden files, so I don't actually know when he's going to get to continuing this series. There's been a lot of rumors for a while, but nothing kind of concrete for us to work with. Okay, now let's get into like the classic series that people talk about when they're talking about series where we're waiting for the next book and we don't know when we're going to get them. Hello, so editing me bumping in here because I skipped out a book that I do think belongs in the spot. So the one that I missed out is the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch. This is a book all about Locke Lamora and his band of thieves as they go around perpetrating different cons. It's a very clever book series and a lot of fun, but we have been waiting for the fourth book for quite a long time and nobody really knows when it's going to come out. Partly, I think this is because it's a very clever book series and I have no doubt that the fourth book is probably one that would be very difficult to write. But also, Scott Lynch made some bad life choices a little while back, and I suspect that might also be a factor in why this fourth book has been delayed. I do think, having read a bit about his bad life choices, that it was just that, bad life choices, rather than like irredeemable asshole fuckery. So I'm really hoping he's taking this time to like reflect on what he's done with his life, come back a better person and give us the book that we've all been waiting for. I know this is one where I keep seeing release dates saying that it's coming out soon, but I honestly have seen that for a while now, so I don't know if I believe any of them. Firstly, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Winds of Winter has been promised for a long time. We know he's working on it, but he's also working on a bunch of other things. He's getting older and older. Everybody's very concerned. As well, he has said that because he did certain things in different ways during the books, he does plan for the books to have a different ending than the TV show. So really, we need the rest of the books. I think he's planning to write like 2 more. It changes. I've seen different information, I think, depending on how he's going with writing it. I think the last thing I saw about when this series might get the next book was basically George R.R. Martin saying, you should be excited about some of the other stuff I do. So that's not promising. As well, we've got the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss, starting with Name of the Wind. This book series was really popular, and I do really love it. We have Quoth, who is kind of this legendary character, and he's telling his story about how he learnt magic, how he studied at the university, how he did all these legendary things, but maybe they weren't quite as legendary as everybody thought. But also, he's now working as a bartender out in the middle of nowhere, so you know something has kind of gone wrong somewhere along the way. We don't know what though, because we're still waiting for the third book, Doors of Stone. I know Patrick Rothfuss has been really struggling with this third book, and I guess just kind of with personal issues. I also kind of think probably he got quite a lot of fame once this book series became popular, and so I think that's probably had a big impact on his ability to write book 3 as well. But I have seen most recently that he does seem to be making progress on it, so I'm very hopeful that he'll be able to continue with that. Then as well, we've got the Saga of the Exiles by Melanie Rawn. This is another one where Melanie Rawn's mother died and then she was quite severely depressed. She really struggled with writing the third book, so she put it down, wrote some other things. There was an announcement probably like 5 years ago now that she was going to come back to it and try and finish it, but I haven't seen any information since then. Also, there's just so much complexity in the first books, and I'm just not sure whether she's going to be able to come back to it and do it justice. Plus, I don't know if she's even still working on it. So it's been about I don't know, probably 20 years now since the second book came out. So it's been a long time, but I will continue to wait, hopefully. And if it turns out that we don't get the third book, probably at some point I will reread the first two books and then just make up my own ending. Because I've been wanting to reread that book series, but I'm a little bit scared to before that third book comes out. Because, like, I don't want to have that feeling of desperation for the third book to come out again. Whereas at the moment, I've been waiting a long time. I've gotten used to it. So I guess we'll see what happens with that one. Then I've just got a couple of series where I honestly don't know whether there will be more books in the series. Signs point to no, but my heart says yes, please. Firstly, we've got the Rolling in the Deep series by Mira Grant, which is a pen name for Sean M. Maguire. So this series is primarily Into the Drowning Deep, but there was also like a prequel novella called Rolling in the Deep. The novella kind of talks about this expedition out to try and find some mermaids that goes horribly wrong. Then in the main book, basically there's some footage from what happened there, and another expedition has gone out to try and figure out what actually happened to them. Now, I would love to get some more of these creepy mermaids, and I did see Sean M. Maguire saying that if the series was popular, she would write some more books. But I haven't seen anything since then, which does make me wonder that not enough of you went out and read Into the Drowning Deep. Or it could just be that she's had a lot of success with some of her other series, and so she's been focusing on them. One of those series is the Up and Under series, which I have not been enjoying, so like, am I happy about that? No, I would much prefer to have more books like Into the Drowning Deep. Thank you. But again, I guess it's not all about me. But still, I keep this on my list of series I'm hoping will continue just in case it happens, just to remind myself to keep looking to see whether it has happened. And another one that I'm hopeful for is the Cassidy Blake series by Victoria Schwab. So this is a middle grade series where this girl named Cassidy Blake can see ghosts. Her parents are also like ghost hunters. They go out and make documentaries in very haunted places about ghosts, not realizing that their daughter can actually see ghosts and her best friend is a ghost. So there have been 3 books put out, and Victoria Schwab says that that's all she's going to write for now. And I just hold on to that for now because I don't feel like those 3 books wrapped up kind of the side plot with her ghost best friend very well. And I think there is the potential to write so many cool stories with the characters that she created and the world she created. So basically, I leave this one on the list as well in case she decides to write some more Cassidy Blake books, because I would like her to. So that is all the series that I have on my list where I'm waiting for more books to come out. Let me know if you're also excited for any of these series, or if there's any other series that you are desperately waiting for more books to come out in them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.